talk, oh my gosh, my dog. He's not used to me sitting on the floor, so he thinks that it's time to snuggle. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Jenna here, and today I'm going to be sharing with you the birth stories of my two boys. One I had all natural and one I had an epidural-ish. We'll get into it. So if talking about giving birth makes you a little uncomfortable, then maybe you don't want to watch this video because some of the details may not be exactly what you want to hear. Before I start, I just wanted to give a little bit of advice if you are having a baby soon or like ever having a baby, is to document it, write it down, record everything you feel as soon as you can, because over time like memories fade and it's just like the most, I don't know, it was the most life-changing thing that's ever happened to me. I think that most people feel that way about having their first and even their second and third and fourth, whatever. I'm going to use this as a way for me to keep record as well as share the story with you. I think a lot of moms are interested in other people's birthing experiences. I know I am. I love to hear and I love to talk to other women about their experience, and honestly, it's just so different for everyone. And so I can tell you what happened with mine, but yours is going to be completely unique if you're going through that. Even for me as the same person, both of my births are like completely opposite of each other. And so I'm interested to see how this third one is going to go because, like I said, the first two were just like completely opposite. As far as the baby goes, the baby did drop yesterday. So that could mean like a few more weeks, that could mean a few more days. So it really doesn't mean much, but the baby did drop and I feel it. If I wasn't so over being pregnant already, I am now. But that's okay. We are just rolling with it, and like literally rolling because I'm just rolling around the house. I can barely walk. I'm just going to start because I feel like this could turn into a very, very long video, and I want it to be as condensed as possible so that you can get through it and so I can get through it. Okay, so my first is Jacob, and I had him 3 years ago. And let's see, I think I was 22, and so I think age does make a difference in your pregnancy and in your delivery. As far as pregnancy goes, it was like a typical pregnancy, no complications. Morning sickness in the beginning, and then it went away in my second trimester, and then nothing unusual, just a regular pregnancy. And then labor. So yeah, here you go. If I give him attention. So then we are going to get into the labor with Jacob. So I think because it was my first baby, my body was not prepared or wasn't ready for it. And so I was in labor forever. And I will say for sure that was the hardest thing, is the time, the length that I was in labor was so hard because it made me exhausted. Like I remember between contractions, I was just shaking out of exhaustion. Like I had literally used my complete fill of energy, and it was just, that's my main memory. It was just being so tired. And I mean the pain was bad for sure, like the pain was plenty bad, but it was the exhaustion that I couldn't handle anymore. I want to say it was around 30 hours of labor, and I'm not talking like pre-labor, I'm talking hard labor. When I got to the hospital, I told them I really would like to do this naturally. The biggest reason I wanted to do a natural birth was because I was afraid of needles. I was just afraid of the epidural, really. It just, the thought of that just kind of terrified me. So I really had a goal to do it naturally. And the nurses who helped me at that time, they were kind of like, okay, and kind of like, okay, she's gonna change her mind, just wait. And it was my first baby, so I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I tried a lot of things. I tried sitting on like a exercise ball to relieve pain. I tried getting in the bathtub, and that actually made the biggest difference. And I learned that for my next delivery too, just get in the bathtub. And so anyways, so I got in the bathtub, and that made a huge difference in the pain level. I think just being surrounded by water or something, I'm not sure. But it was still pretty unbearable. I had my mom and my husband and my mother-in-law actually in the hospital room with me, and I wanted to keep it together. Like I wanted to be like a sane, normal person, but I was in pain and nothing mattered anymore. Like I'm very private. I like to be covered. I like to be, you know, like I'm very private, but when I was in labor, it didn't matter. Nothing mattered. And I'm sure you guys can relate to that. Like if you've gone through it, like anyone can see anything because I don't care about anything right now. it was just really hard. I think on top of being exhausted, my contractions were so close together. Like I would look at the monitor and I had 30 seconds to rest, and then here, boom, comes another contraction, and I swear they lasted forever. And that's what made it so hard. There was no rest between any of my contractions, and I was just exhausted. And I remember the nurse kept checking me to see how dilated I am, and she checked me, and then like an hour later she checked me again. She said, "You're still at a 7." And so I was like, okay, I can't stay here. I was at a 7 for hours, and I was in so much pain, and I was like, okay, I can't do this any longer. Like, I guess just go get the anesthesiologist because I need an epidural. And so they went to get the anesthesiologist, and while we waited for him, I just continued to fight through the pain. Looking back, if I could have just known, I would have not gotten the epidural because it was scary. And this is the worst part. I mean, if you prefer that, then good for you. Before I say anything else about an epidural, I don't care how you have your baby. If you have a C-section, an epidural, if you have a natural delivery, whatever it is, if you get a baby into this world, you are an amazing woman, and that's that. There's nothing more to it. You're amazing. But for me personally, I just really didn't want to go there. So anyways, the anesthesiologist came in, and it was so hard getting the epidural because they can't just like wait till you have contractions. Like it just never stops. My contractions literally felt like one would start and then I would go again. Like my chart just looked like this. Like it was just nonstop, and my body was just trying so hard. It was doing the best it could. And anyway, so he gave me the epidural while I was having a contraction, and they're like, "You need to hold still." Like he's putting a needle in my spine, and they were telling me I needed to hold still, and I just couldn't because I'm having contractions, so that was miserable. Oh, and then throughout the whole thing I was having back labor. With both of my pregnancies I've had back labor, and I think that just kind of made the pain that much worse because I don't know, there was just nothing comfortable about it, and I didn't expect there to be, but I don't know, I didn't know it was going to be that bad. He starts giving me my epidural, and he says right here is, like, he shows me this thing, this is where you can control it, and so if you need more, you know, just go ahead and get more out of the epidural. And so I think he started me off with a kind of a low dose, and from what I understand it takes about 20 minutes for the epidural to kick in. So I roll back over and I'm still having contractions, they're still hurting, and they were like, okay, we have to put a catheter in you. That's just standard if you have an epidural because you can't control your like fillings down there, and so we need to put a catheter in you. And so like she starts to try to do that, and I'm like, okay, whoa, there's something wrong, there's something wrong, it hurts, this hurts so bad. I just remember saying over and over, this hurts so bad, this hurts so bad. And suddenly I felt my water break. I didn't know what it was, but I was like, guys, I think I just peed. And she's like, oh no, your water broke. Like, it was my first time. I had no idea what's going on. I was completely unprepared, honestly. I should have been way more prepared. Anyways, and so she looks, she's like, oh no, your water just broke, it's okay, let me check to see how dilated you are. And she checked, and I was complete. I was ready, the baby was coming, and I was like, this hurts really bad, this hurts really bad. And so because I know it hurt so bad, I know for a fact the epidural never really had a chance to fully kick in, so it's hard to say like which delivery I prefer, because it's almost as if I didn't have a true epidural, if that makes sense. So she checked and she saw I was complete, and they were like, okay, let's start this. And they get, you know, the baby team in there, they call the doctor, they get my legs up in the stirrups, and it didn't take long, honestly. Like, I was thinking, okay, we're gonna be pushing for another hour or so. I don't know what I was thinking. And then that way I was really lucky. Like, labor was long, but the pushing was fast. And I think it was probably about 20 minutes. Time when you're in that situation really like means nothing. And it's kind of just like whatever. So I remember pushing about 3 times. And I remember telling the nurse, this is embarrassing, but I remember telling the nurse, like, I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna poop, like, I can't keep it in. And she's like, it's probably not, it's probably just the baby, so you just push. And sure enough, it was just the baby. But I don't know, like, having that baby and my husband was right there, and I remember when Jacob was coming out and my husband was like, oh my gosh, there's hair, and they started pulling him out, and just like kind of, I don't know, this is the experience I have with both of my kids when I see the look on my husband's face when he sees the baby. And they actually set up a mirror so I could see as well while I was pushing the baby out. And then they, you know, they got the baby, they cleaned it up and handed him to me, and that changes your life forever. I have never known love like that, and I'm sure every mom will tell you that. And I didn't think I was getting emotional. This was 3 years ago. But that was the most beautiful moment of my life. I will never forget that. That was the most incredible feeling, the most incredible thing. And I remember telling my mom, like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. Like, I had the biggest adrenaline rush, the biggest high. Like, after I had the baby, I just felt amazing, and I was like, oh, I can breathe. Like, I could breathe. Like, I had room in my stomach to breathe, and it was the coolest thing, and I was like just elated. Like, oh my gosh, that was the coolest feeling ever. I don't know, it was the biggest adrenaline rush, and that's the biggest thing I'll remember forever, is like how amazing it felt. Like, I just did that. That was amazing. And then it was kind of weird because, like I said, my epidural, so they obviously unhooked it. So I was like half numb, and so they're like, well, we have to try to get you to the bathroom. So then they do all this weird stuff, you know, like showing you how to take care of yourself. I did tear pretty well. I don't know the exact measurements or how many stitches, but it was a pretty good tear, and so I had to learn how to take care of that and get stitched up. And anyway, there was all that, and then it came time to nurse, and Jacob did not want to nurse. It was a struggle, and that just led to like a whole change in my life, because I just was like, oh, of course I'm gonna nurse my kids. Like, first of all, it's free, you know, second of all, they say it's so good for the baby, you know. And Jacob didn't want to nurse, and so at the beginning, when you have a baby, all you have is colostrum anyway, so it's not like the baby's drinking. Their tummies are the size of a marble. It doesn't take anything to fill it up. But if I just can't get him to latch and hook on, then I just can't. I don't know, it just made it really difficult, and it was my first baby, and I didn't know how to nurse. Like, it was just really hard. And that's probably like a whole nother video, so I won't get into like nursing, because that's like a whole nother topic. But it just made going home really difficult, because when I was at the hospital, the nurses would just come and like attach him to me, because they knew how to do it, and I just didn't know what I was doing. So when we went home from the hospital, we went home after like a day, just like normal. Everyone was fine, everyone was healthy. And that's when things got really hard. That's when like life kicked in, and I've never been so sleep deprived in my life. Like, I had Noah, and it wasn't a problem, I think, because my body had done it. I was expecting it. People tell you you're gonna be tired. People tell you you're not gonna sleep, but nothing can prepare you for what that lack of sleep feels like. It's crazy. And so if you are in this situation, mentally prepare yourself. Like, think you're not going to sleep for weeks. If you do get to, then that's awesome, but if you were like me, then you might not get to. And my husband was trying to be helpful, but like, I really wanted to nurse, and so like, he could only do so much. You know, the baby needed to eat during the night, and that was my job. So that led to, I think, a lot of depression and a lot of just difficult things as far as the baby. It's really confusing, and I don't want to like self-diagnose or anything like that, but I love this baby so much, but he made my life so hard. And looking back, like, I had Noah after that, and I was fine with Noah, and like, it's not the same anymore. So maybe it had to do with it being my first baby, but it was hard. It was really hard, and it took a few good few months before I feel like I pulled out of that. It eventually all blew over, but that was easily the most difficult thing. It was like the best thing that's ever happened in my life, and then the most difficult thing that's ever happened. And I would obviously do it again 100 times for my Jakey, but it was hard. It was hard, and that's okay. So that kind of concludes my Jacob birth. So then it came time for us to have another baby, and we got pregnant with Noah. And I guess the pregnancy was almost identical, like morning sickness, throwing up just a little bit, second trimester fine, third trimester uncomfortable, but perfectly normal, like nothing was wrong. This is where the difference between the two pregnancies like was really different, like complete opposites. With Noah, oh, by the way, I did go 40 weeks to the day with Jacob, and Noah I was like 39 weeks and 5 days, so, or like 4 days, so like really close to full term. So with Noah, I remember like waking up in the morning. I remember Noah a lot better because it was only a year ago. So I woke up in the morning and both times my mom, like I would call my mom and be like, I don't really feel good, I feel like this, and she's like, oh, you're gonna have a baby today, and she was right both times. Anyways, so I remember like I was like cramping, like period cramps, like ugh, I just felt like nauseous, and you know how you feel like when you're on your period and you just feel like bloated and like ugh, just like yuck. And it was Valentine's Day, and I was like, oh, I hope I don't have the baby today, because this is like a holiday. I don't want to like give the baby, his birthday is like Valentine's Day, you know, I want my date on Valentine's Day. Anyways, so I remember being like, I don't know, this could be labor, but I'm not sure. So I spent the day feeling kind of yucky, and then like as the evening came, I started having contractions, and I was like, oh, this is it. Yep, I'm gonna have a baby. And I knew, like, and that was kind of a cool feeling, because like the second time around I knew what to expect. So the contractions started, and they were going for a few hours. They weren't super uncomfortable, but they were not, I felt like I was already in like real labor, not like pre-labor, like just from what I remember. And so only a few hours into them, but they were so far apart. I was timing them and they were like 10 minutes apart. I always like download an app so I can time my contractions, because otherwise like I can't keep track very well. And so I was timing them, and it will like tell me the average, and they were like averaging 10 minutes apart and only lasting for like 30 seconds. And so I was like, okay, well, we shouldn't go to the hospital, but I'm gonna call them and let them know that I'm expecting to come in. And I was like, should I come in or not, because my contractions aren't really like close, but they're regular and they're pretty hard. And they were like, you should just come in, like it's easier to just check and then we can send you home if not. And so I went in, and they were like, okay, you're dilated to a 3. And last time when I was dilated to a 3, they just checked me in and we did it, you know. But they were like, but this is your second baby, so you'll know when it's time, like we can check you in, but I recommend you go home and just kind of try to be comfortable and relax at home. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna go home. Like if I'm gonna be like this for like 10 more hours, I'd rather do it at home. So I went back home, and I remember getting in the bathtub, and by the time I got home, my contractions were really strong, like really painful. Like I would have to lay down, you know, each time I had a contraction, and then 10 minutes would go between each one, and I'd get up and do things. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna get in the bathtub and try to make these contractions feel better, because I remembered with Jacob that helped. And so I got into the bathtub, and I just remember them getting so bad. I spent about an hour in the bathtub, and I finally got out of the bathtub, and I was trying to get my clothes on, but my contractions hurt so bad, but still seriously 10 minutes apart. But they were very strong contractions, very painful. And my husband was sleeping, because at this point it's like 2 in the morning or something. My husband was sleeping in the bed and just like, let me know when it's time, you know. And so I got out of the bathtub, and I go to him, and I'm like, okay, we need to go to the hospital right now. I know this is it. I know the baby's gonna come, because this hurts so bad. And then he would be like, oh, okay, but he was groggy, so he would like fall back asleep, and then I would fall asleep, because my contractions were so far apart that I completely had 10 minutes, you know, really, like seriously 10 minutes in between to rest, take a nap, have a contraction, wake up. And every time I had a contraction, I was like, Juan, we gotta go, like this hurts so bad, we're gonna have the baby. And he'd be like, oh, okay, yeah. And then my contraction would stop, and I'd fall back asleep. So that probably lasted like another hour where I was like, I gotta go to the hospital. Anyways, finally I was like, Juan, I can't wait anymore, we have to go. So we get in the car. I'm like dying. That's like the hardest thing, is when they're like admitting you in, and you don't have a bed, but you're like having full-on contractions, and you're like dying in the hallway, like I don't know. It was just, it's all humiliating. It's all, but they deal with it, so it's normal to them. I remember getting checked in, and they were like, I think I was dilated to a 7, but still my contractions were so far apart. And I was like, so what? Like, I don't know. And they're like, sometimes that's just how it is, I guess. Like, we're just gonna keep you here and have the baby. Literally until the moment I gave birth, my contractions were that far apart. Like I had time to chill and like talk, like, oh, this is crazy, this is so weird, oh, here comes a contraction, and then I'd be screaming. Like it was like 2 different people, and then the contraction would go away, and I had time to relax. And that was like what made all the difference. Like it was the weirdest thing, because I completely got to relax and recover and prepare for the next contraction. And I was like yelling during the contractions like a crazy person. And then I don't know, Anyway, so they were like, when they checked me in, they were like, so let's go ahead and break your water so we can get this just to go really fast. And they went to go try to break it, and they're like, oh, your water already broke. And I was like, oh. And I could remember specifically, like, I was in the bathtub, so I couldn't like tell, but I know the moment my contractions got really bad, that was when my water broke. So anyway, so my water broke. So my water broke with both of my babies on its own, which I've heard is kind of rare, but it helps your labor progress. And for me, it's like really quick after my water breaks. So, well, quick-ish. And anyways, so I'm in the hospital. My water's broken. They're like, okay, we're just gonna, I don't know what to tell you. Your contractions are far apart, but there's nothing we can really do. You know, you just have to let it do its thing. And like suddenly out of nowhere, I was like, oh, okay, you know what? I'm having the baby right now. Like, I know what this feels like. I've done this before, and the baby is coming out right now. And she was like, oh, let me check. And she was like, oh yeah, you're complete. Somebody get the doctor right now. And I was like, I can't wait for the doctor. I have to push this baby out right now. And she's like, just wait. And if you've been in that situation, you can't just wait. You can't not push the baby out. There's so much pressure. And I was like, I'm sorry, but the baby's coming, and I don't care if the doctor is in here. And so the nurses were kind of scrambling, getting all the teams in, and I was like, I'm pushing, just letting them know. Like, I was like nervous, and the nurse was like, okay, you know. And finally the doctor walked in, and it wasn't my doctor. Both times my doctor was out of town, so I ended up having the on-call doctor deliver my babies, which didn't really matter. It didn't make a big difference for me. But anyways, so the doctor comes in, just seriously, the very first push, the baby just like spit out. My mom describes it as like a bar of soap, or like a movie, or like extremely exaggerated. Like, that's really what happened. The baby squirt out in one big push and just popped out the baby. I think because of that, I ripped all the way complete, like everything was ripped, but nothing else mattered because I had my baby. And it was different having the second. It wasn't the same. It was very different, like feelings. It was like, oh, I'm so glad you're here, but my life was, I already knew what it was gonna feel like. I already knew how amazing it was gonna be, so it wasn't like less significant, it was just different. And so anyways, so I had my baby, and he was completely different as far as nursing goes. Like, they handed him to me, and then he was just like, you know, what is it called? What is it called when they're like, I can't think of the word, but they're like nuzzling into you, trying to find the food. Anyways, and he latched on just like that, and he ate, and that's how he is. You know what I mean? So it's totally a personality difference from the very beginning, and just completely different labor. Like, with one, it lasted forever, and it was intense the entire time, and I got an epidural, and it just didn't take the edge off. And the other one was very quick. I had a ton of resting time, and I remember telling my mom after I had Noah, after I had the baby, like within a few minutes, I will do this again. If someone can promise that my labor will be like this, I will do this again. I got very lucky the second time around. So that's pretty much the story. And then I took Noah home, and I don't know if I was more prepared or more mature, or I don't know what the difference was, but I felt amazing. Like, it was not difficult. It could have been Noah's personality, but I had no problem with the sleeping. Of course I was tired, but like, I just did it. Like, he woke up, I wake up, we fed, you know what I mean? It was like I had it figured out so much better, and I'm really nervous. A lot of people tell me the third is the worst, so we'll see how this one goes. I can expect it to be pretty difficult because, I don't know, I know how hard my two kids are right now, and then I have to add another baby to take care of. But I think that it all works out in the end, and you just go with the flow one day at a time. I'm just really excited to see how the difference of this delivery is gonna go. One, because it's a girl, and also because it's my third baby. My deliveries so far were just very, very different, and I think it's gonna be very different again. And so it's fun to hear other people's stories, but it's almost like everyone is different, and you know, so everyone just has such a different experience. No matter what though, it's just the most rewarding thing and the most like beautiful, life-changing thing. You know what love is when you have a baby. So I'm really, really excited. I know Jacob is excited for his sister to get here, and Noah has no idea. He's literally 13 months right now, so he has no idea what's coming. but I think it's going to be amazing for him to have a sister so close to him in age. Anyways, I know this video was a little bit different than what you're used to seeing on my channel, but I figured it is something that I wanted to share, and it's something that is relevant to my life right now, and so I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please give this video a thumbs up. Yeah, Rico. This is my other baby. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it through that whole video, then you are the real MVP here, because that was a long video. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and we hope you have a great day.